Good morning, guys. Luke here. In today's video, we're taking a look at quite a lot of content. Some really cool things have happened in the last few days. The first one is the fact that the new PS5 Slim, although it's not actually called that yet, has been teared down by Dave 2D and also Linus Tech Tips. And I watched the video and I actually agree with a lot of the comments that Dave made about the new PS5. So here's some of my thoughts. So Dave talks about it having the same chip, which kind of makes sense. It has the same SSD. It's got a Foxconn fan. The actual design and the shape is obviously very similar to the original. But here's the biggest thing. I don't feel like it actually kind of deserves the slim tag that it's kind of going for. I don't really feel like it's that thin in comparison to the original. This is going to sound weird, but I was going to buy the original, the PS5, and I just feel like it's too big. It's just huge. Like I've got a couple of mates that have this PS5, and it is enormous. It's basically like having a full-size desktop computer beside your TV. And personally, like the living area, the entertaining area is kind of, for my home anyway, like you want it to look nice and neat, like a nice slimline home theater setup, a nice thin TV on the wall, etc. But the PS5 is enormous and it's kind of ugly. And I was kind of looking forward to the PS5 Slim being a bit more aesthetically pleasing, and it kind of isn't. It's kind of the same thing, but just a little bit smaller. So here's a couple of other takeaways. So Dave said it's got the same chip. He doesn't know for sure. It's got this weird two-tone color setup. So if you look at it, maybe I can find it here on the screen here, but well, let's go here. So you can see on the video here. So on the top side there, it's kind of like this shiny white finish, and then the disk drive on the other side, on the right-hand side, is kind of more of like a flat white finish. So there's kind of this multi-color setup going on. We have like this cut line running through it, which does look very similar to the controller. I don't mind that. I think that looks pretty good. Although I imagine a lot of skin brands, D-Brand, and all the other ones will come out with their own skins that will match the PS5 and make it look a bit better. I think the white is just a little bit too much. It's a bit of an eyesore, especially beside a TV in the living room. But yeah, so basically it's the same kind of thing. There's not much change. It's still got a massive power supply on the inside. I kind of feel like another year or so, maybe 2 years, they'll bring out an actual thin, very thin version of the PS5. So little tiny bit of disappointment. But yeah, if you're going to buy a new PS5, it makes sense to probably go and buy this one because, yeah, it is smaller. It's got a smaller footprint and isn't that much of an eyesore beside the TV. All right, so there's a couple other really cool things that have happened in the last few days. First one, I found this extremely interesting. This is an article on capturemag.com.au, and just says that the Leica launches the M11 P, and it's the first camera with content credentials. So right now we're kind of living in this digital age of AI, and one of the big things is AI creating imagery, and it's getting to the stage where, we've got people winning photography awards with images created by AI. And in an effort to try and stop that and give original content the credit it deserves, the Leica M11 P now carries what's called content credentials, which essentially, as soon as the image is taken, that data is stored into the photo. And then if you make edits inside like Photoshop or, digital software to make changes to the photo, all of that information is stored into the image itself, so that, all of the credentials around how this photo was created are stored. It makes total sense. Like if you think about the Pixel 8, which basically allows you to do some crazy wild things to images, like, erasing things you don't want there, changing faces on people, it's a little bit creepy, actually. So on the screen here, you can see they've got the original image and then how it was customized using Photoshop, and all of that information is stored into that content credentials, so that if you, I don't know, buy an artwork, or you want to know who the original artist of an image was, or whether it's actually a real image, it is stored now inside this content credentials, and that passes with the image. If you open it in Photoshop, you can see what's been done, etc. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting that we're moving into this territory where, you know, what is a real photo now? Like, that's the question. So yeah, good article. I'll link it below. It's worth reading. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about, if you're a Gran Turismo player, I actually watched the Gran Turismo movie on the weekend, and it was surprisingly pretty good. I think it's quite worthy of the Gran Turismo tag and name. But if you've got the PS5 version of Gran Turismo, cool thing is you can now do 4-player split screen on a single PS5, which is really cool. Like, that's always been something I've always really enjoyed when playing Gran Turismo, is just, you know, having that local multiplayer, racing all your friends. And you can now do that in 4-player split screen. So you need to get the update. It's update 1.40. It adds new cars, a racetrack, and that 4-player split screen. So just jump into the PS5 updates and you'll be able to get that one today. Now, if you happen to be a CounterStrike player, I used to be a CounterStrike player back in the day, you'll probably know that CounterStrike 2 came out fairly recently. And it was, I would say it's a pretty successful launch. It says here in this article, since it was released, it's actually had a pretty significant drop of 20% in its players. So came out on the 27th of September, and it had 1.4 million concurrent players, which is a pretty big user base. And it says it was lower than CSGO, but it says that it is a little bit more demanding and won't run on older PCs. But it's saying that as time has gone on, the count has declined. And a month after it's released, the highest peak is 1.1. So it's had a bit of a drop, about 20%. And they attribute it to a lot of players complaining that the hit registration, or the hitbox, isn't that accurate. And I would actually agree with that. I played a little bit of Counter-Strike 2, and I found the hitbox was much better than CSGO. I thought CSGO was terrible, but Counter-Strike 2 still isn't quite as good as the original Counter-Strike. I don't know why. I just personally found that often I'd fire, and then someone would turn around and shoot once, and I'd, you know, get a headshot and die or whatever. But it sounds like they are working on it. I hit the pause button on Counter-Strike 2 just because, again, that hitbox was just all over the place. So a couple of really cool things happening at the moment, guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the follow button, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.